Hi, I'm Barbara Rimkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. How do you know what's true? Historians grapple with this all the time. I usually try to find a few different sources that agree on the same thing, but even this can be tricky. Take newspaper stories. A newspaper account written at the time an event takes place can be accurate, providing the journalist collects reliable information. So a local paper writing about a local fire will probably have everything right. They're on the ground talking to people who know the place or helped put the fire out. You're good. 19th century newspapers, however, didn't contain that much local news. Most of the paper contained news from the state, the nation, and the world. These were all reprinted from other newspapers in a system of reciprocity. Sometimes an article would be reprinted from an earlier reprint in another paper, almost like playing telephone. In this way, the news was passed along. Some news sources were more reliable than others. In large cities like New York, the rise of cheap daily papers began to plague the legitimate press. Selling for a mere penny, these papers thrived on stories of an exotic or scandalous nature. The best example of this is known as the Great Moon Hoax. In late August of 1835, the New York Sun, one of those penny papers, ran a series of 6 articles purportedly reprinted from a supplement to the Edinburgh Journal of Science about great astronomical discoveries lately made by Sir John Herschel. Herschel, a well-known astronomer, was at the time in South Africa, eagerly awaiting the arrival of Halley's Comet. And the Edinburgh Journal of Science had ceased publication several years earlier. However, the use of Herschel's name and the name of a previously reliable journal gave the story some credence. The series began with a description of a great new telescope capable of magnifying far better than any had been used before. The telescope was turned toward the moon, revealing that it was a greenish-brown color, covered with dark red flowers. There were forests, lakes, beaches, and animals, like bison and blue unicorn goats. People were still buying the story at this point. There were beavers that walked upright. Like beavers on Earth, lunar beavers excelled at building, although rather than making dams and dens, upright walking moon beavers built huts with fireplaces. The final installment, and this is where a lot of readers fell off, described creatures called Vespertilio homo, man-bats, that had furry bodies with transparent wings. Sadly, at this moment in the yarn, the telescope was damaged by fire, and so readers would have to wait for Dr. Herschel's final report. Newspapers sold like crazy, and a lot of New England newspapers carried the story and later had to deal with the fallout. In Exeter, our local paper didn't have an agreement of reciprocity with the New York Sun. Ours was a respectable 6-cent paper that published weekly. Instead of publishing the original, editor John Garish tried to describe the contents, telling readers they spoke of a moon filled with diverse other beauties too numerous to be mentioned, but addressed the more important question. Is the moon inhabited by rational beings, he asked. It was impossible to determine what language they spoke. And an outright snarky, when we ascertain the titles of their leading newspapers, and he's speaking of the Lunarian creatures, we shall send them via the Cape of Good Hope a copy of the newsletter with the customary endorsement, please exchange. As far as we can tell, no newspaper ever made it to Exeter from the moon, and Exeter's citizens, to their credit, didn't fall for this hoax. For more lore and legends and history, visit our website at www.exeterhistory.org.